Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the No Kid Hungry Center for Best Practices Summer 2025 webinar series. Today, we will be talking about reaching rural families with Grab and Go and ideas for transforming summer meal programs. My name is Robin Hernandez, and I am the Senior Manager for Center for Best Practices team at No Kid Hungry. Next slide. So before we begin, I just want to give you a few important housekeeping items. The slide deck will be shared with you via email after the webinar, along with the recording. I also encourage you to use the chat box throughout the webinar to engage with other attendees. And the webinar will include a Q&A session after all of our speakers have gone. So please submit your questions throughout the webinar via the Q&A box, not the chat. Sometimes questions can get lost in the chat box. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little box that says Q&A, and you can put your questions in there. And time permitting, we will try to get to all of them. We're also committed to making our webinars accessible and inclusive, so closed captioning is available, and you can turn that on at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So now we're going to review the agenda for today's webinar. Next slide. So I'm going to share with you who's on our panel of speakers today, and also some data that was collected on Grab and Go meals in 2024. Then we're going to hear from 3 summer meal sponsors who successfully implemented Grab and Go meals last year. We will have our Q&A portion of the call, and then we'll finally do some resource sharing and updates. And lastly, we will close the call with a quick 5-question survey, as your feedback is super important to us. So I encourage you to please stay on the call to finish that survey at the end. Next slide. So I'm very excited to have an amazing lineup of experts and sponsors who are going to be sharing their expertise with us today. So we are going to be joined by Avery Mauna Kea, who's the Executive Director of Alternative Structures International, DBA Kahumana. And we have Carla Boudreau Horton, who is the Child Nutrition Supervisor from Bossier Parish School Board in Louisiana. And we have Beth Miller, the Food Service Director from Metcalfe County Schools in Kentucky. Next slide. Before we go on to our speakers, I would like to share some interesting data that No Kid Hungry collected last year. In late 2024, we commissioned surveys to capture feedback from sponsors in 45 states and from families in areas that had non-congregate meal service. And here is a little bit about what we learned. Next slide. The sponsor survey found that 2/3 of sponsors provided Grab and Go meals as part of their non-congregate meal service. From the perspective of families, Grab and Go was one of their top 2 preferred ways of getting non-congregate meals, with home delivery being the most preferred. Next slide. We also found that nearly 2/3 of sponsors reported that they provided multiple days' worth of meals for pickup or delivery. This multi-day meal flexibility made it convenient and feasible for families because they did not have to return to sites daily to pick up meals. Families were also most likely to say that they'd prefer getting 5 to 7 days worth of meals at a time. 2 to 4 days worth was also a popular preference among families. The multi-day meal flexibility made it more convenient and feasible for families because they did not have to return to sites daily, as I mentioned. So by learning that the Grab and Go was most popular method of implementation, especially when combined with a multi-day meal, we chose to focus exclusively on these models for today's webinar. Next slide. So before we go to our sponsor spotlights, I would like to note that our speakers represent their own experience with non-congregate summer meal programs in their specific states and localities. Certain program models and implementation methods may be restricted in certain states, so check with your local state agency before implementing any new meal service model or implementation method. Next slide. Our first speaker is Avery Mauna Kea, who is joining us from the beautiful island and will be sharing her experiences as a community-based organization serving Grab and Go meals for a large section of the island. Avery proudly serves as the Executive Director of Kahumana, Alternative Structures International, which is a nonprofit organization deeply rooted in Waianae, Hawaii. As a native Hawaiian, she brings a profound cultural perspective to her leadership role. Her vision centers on integrating culturally based services that emphasize compassion and draw upon lived experiences. Her approach to honor her kupunas, or elders' values, while addressing contemporary community needs. So welcome, Avery, and thank you for joining us.
Aloha. So before I start, let me mahalo share our strength and No Kid Hungry, as well as you, Robin, for facilitating this and providing that environment for us to share and to learn. And I'm so excited to be here and to share space with you all today. Definitely want to send aloha to the two ladies that are panelists alongside me, Carla and Beth. Aloha. It is so nice to see you both again. So to tell you a little bit about our nonprofit, we are located in the beautiful state of Hawaii, and we are located on the western island of the island of Oahu. Kahumana is a nonprofit. Could we change to the next slide, please? Okay, so Kahumana has been serving the community for over 50 years. We provide a variety of services for the most vulnerable in our community. We are on a mission to inspire and empower our community. And Kahumana does this through innovative strategies with our housing solutions, our home and community-based services, and through our agriculture enterprises. We emphasize compassion, and we draw upon our lived experiences. And why does Kahumana choose to serve this way? It's because every person is vital to the health and well-being of our community. So here in Hawaii, we call the Rural Non-Congregate Summer Food Service Program Kaukau for Keiki. Kaukau is a word that many of us use to describe the word eat, and keiki is a Hawaiian word for child or children. We are one of the two sponsors on the island of Oahu. Last year, we partnered with the Hawaii Food Bank to make a bigger impact on our island. And with the efforts of the Hawaii Food Bank and Kahumana, we distributed over 493,000 meals on our island. Our shared goal this year is 500,000 meals. So we're going to show you a little video. It's a clip of our video. It's for Kaukau for Keiki Kahumanas. If you would like to see the whole video, it is located on our website at kahumana.org. Please. Mahalo. So to describe the area, per the U.S. Census Bureau, the Waianae Census County Division consists of 61 square miles of land. So our natural boundaries will be the Waianae Mountain Range and the Pacific Ocean. Waianae has over 51,000 residents, and our median household income is about $83,927. 85% of our population identifies as a minority or mixed race. We have 12 public and charter schools in the area, and the enrollment is over 8,000 students. The average free and reduced meals is 93.62%. Can we please go on to the next slide? Thank you. So Kahumana is a sponsor and an advocate for Kaukau for Keiki. Our employees are passionate about this program, as 80% of our workforce has grown up or currently call Waianae home. 90% of our workforce identifies as Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. During the 2024 Kaukau for Keiki program, with support from organizations like No Kid Hungry, Feed the Hunger Fund, Hawaii Investment Ready, Hawaii Child Action Network, the USDA, and with Hawaii Nutrition Program, Kahumana distributed 245,000 meals in the 8-week period. Next slide, please. Thank you. 100% of our boxes were sourced locally. we utilized an inter-island network of food hubs and vendors, local farmers, local community to support Hawaii's agriculture and our economy. Next slide, please. So this is a typical box that we would have distributed in 2024. And this box contains 7 breakfasts and 7 lunches. Kahumana distributed roughly between 400 to 500 boxes daily, Monday through Friday. At this distribution, with the help of our partners at Elepaio Social Services, along with the district high school agricultural teams, Ho'omahua and Papahana o Kaiona, we had volunteers every day. Kahumana also hired a dedicated team for Kaukau for Keiki. Most of the summer hires were high school students from the Waianae area. And they also had been recipients of the boxes in the previous years, or they were current recipients. What we wanted to do was teach our youth here in Waianae that they are part of the solution to healing our community and that they do have the power to make a difference. Next slide, please. With our partnerships with Hawaii Ulu Cooperative and Moku Waipiko Poi, Kahumana included indigenous staples of kalo and poi in our boxes. Poi is a product that is made with kalo and water. Kalo is gluten-free, it's hypoallergenic, and can be safely eaten by people with most food allergies. Kalo not only has nutritional values, but it is culturally significant to Native Hawaiians and other Pacific Islanders. Fun fact, poi is one of the most common first foods for keiki here in Hawaii. Kalo is counted as a vegetable as well as a grain per the USDA. The English word for kalo is taro. In the distribution of these items, the Waianae community responded. We were thanked daily, but we were flooded with volunteers. Families that were waiting in line also asked how they could help. And many of them showed up earlier so that they could assist in the distributions. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is an excerpt from our 2024 menu that showed how we had incorporated these culturally significant foods into the meal patterns. And just to let you guys know, Kahumana's 2025 menu already has been approved, and we will be highlighting, again, culturally significant foods and local produce. Next slide, please. So in this picture, I'm in the middle, the woman that's on my right. That is our Congresswoman. So with the support of our Congresswoman, Jill Tokuda, Kahumana received recognition for our efforts in highlighting locally sourced and locally grown foods. Congresswoman Tokuda brought delegates from the White House, the Department of Interior, and the Department of Education here in Hawaii to assist Kahumana staff and employees in our distribution. Next slide, please. The list of volunteers just continued to grow with the advocacy of our politicians, partners, local organization, the community. Kahumana did not use technology in the actual distributions. We printed our sign-in lists and recipients manually signed for each box. Post-its were issued to each vehicle with the number of boxes for our team to load. And we went through so many Post-its, we should have taken stock out on them. In December, at the No Kid Hungry Summer Nutrition Summit, panelists spoke about innovative ways that they utilize technology in their distributions. So Kahumana is now looking into different methods to utilize technology to make our distributions more efficient. So to those panelists, thank you. We learned so much from you. Next slide, please. Kahumana's initiatives are sustained through a combination of private and funding sources, as well as the dedicated efforts of our employees, our partners, local vendors, local organizations, and volunteers. We have a wonderful word here in Hawaii to describe that kind of support. It is laulima. Laulima translates to many hands. It is the core principle that emphasizes the power of cooperation, collaboration, and community. So with that said, I would like to send my aloha to the other Kakao for Keiki sponsors. Many of them are on this call and in this webinar, to Malama Kauai on Kauai Island, to the Hawaii Food Bank on Oahu Island, and to Vibrant Hawaii on Hawaii Island. I would also like to take the time to mahalo all the funders, administrators, sponsors, volunteers, advocates, and communities for their support of the summer feeding program, like Kakao for Keiki, and not just here in Hawaii, but across the United States. Sponsors like Kahumana could not do this work without you guys. So as the Hawaiian proverb says, "A'ohe hana nui ke alu'ia." No task is too big when done by all. Mahalo.
Thank you so very much, Avery, for sharing the amazing work of your organization. Truly a wonderful example of community collaboration at its best, and especially with the way you guys were able to generate all those volunteers. So for those of you that would like to learn more about the work of Kahumana and their Kakao for Keiki program, I've placed both of those links in the chat. And there's some more videos and really great infographics about your program. I encourage everybody to visit those later. Let's go to the next slide, please. So next up, we are going to be joined by Beth Miller, who will be sharing her perspective as a school sponsor who managed a successful grab-and-go program in a small but very rural district. And she did it all with a very small number of employees, too. Beth is a food service director for Metcalfe County Schools in South Central Kentucky, where she has led her hometown program for 19 years. She has a BA in psychology from Western Kentucky University and is thrilled to lead her team into battle against childhood hunger. Beth, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Robin. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. Like we said, you've decided you're going to go into non-congregate feeding for the next summer. You're a small district. Where do you go from here? So, hey, y'all, I am Beth Miller, and I'm from Metcalfe County, Kentucky. We are a very rural, very small district. You can go to the next slide if you'd like to. We are about 1,400 students, pre-K through 12. So we are super small. And it's just really, really kind of farmland, hills and hollers, that kinds of things. We are a CEP district, and we do have a very high population of homeschool students, and also some other non-traditional homeschool students as well. You can go ahead and flip to the next slide if you'd like to. And just bypass that one, we'll go right on. For my team, the first thing I did was I went to ask them, hey, ladies, what do you guys want to do? And they are 22 of the hardest working ladies that I will ever see. You can go ahead and hit that play button if you'd like to. They are excessively fast, but not this fast. This was back during COVID when we were doing simple packed meals and things like that. And so what I did, you can go to the next slide if you'd like to. Thank you. What I did was I said, listen, ladies, what did we learn from COVID? What can we do differently? And they came back with a lot of suggestions and a lot of thoughts, and they are not afraid to share them. So we talked about packaging for our district, from everything from what are the bags going to look like that we send home, what's going to go in the bags, how are we going to make that system a little bit better than we did last year. We talked about bulk items. Are we still going to stick with bulk milk? Are we going to do bulk fruits and veg? What would you guys like to do with that? And then we talked about distribution. Are we going to do a pickup? Are we going to do home delivery? How would we like that to look? And those ladies were very forward with their ideas, which I will always say, if they have a stake in it, they're going to make it their program, and they're going to work that much harder to make sure it's great. Next slide, please. So the first thing we had to do is we had to start with a registration form. And since we are in a county, the entire county is 10,000 people, y'all know Facebook is still huge here. So we went straight to Facebook and posted our Google form. Then it got traction and word of mouth and a lot of shares. I expected 150 students to sign up the first day. We had a little over 460 sign up the first day. And then it just kept going and kept going. We ended up with a little over 700 of our 1,400 students that registered. We did put it on our website and we put it out on Facebook. And like I said, it just took off. We did also have paper forms for some of our families who might not have the technology to fill those out. We also took phone calls that folks wanted to sign up, and we were like, yep, we'll just fill that out for you. And it was very, very effective. Next slide, please. The next thing we did, we talked to a lot of our partners. We talked to our local library, and because we are such a small town, our local library is it's very important. It's a very vital part of our community. We talked to all of our local farmers about a lot of things, and then we also talked to our distributors to make sure we could get some of the products in that our staff wanted to be able to send home to the kids. Next slide, please. At our library, this is the main thing that I'd like to talk about today because they have been our partner for so many years. They do a summer reading program every year, and we're thankful to be a part of feeding those kids and all of that kind of stuff. So we are so tickled for that. But this year we asked them, would you like to be a participant, a pickup site for our homeschool students? We have, like I said, a large proportion of our homeschool students out in the county. They don't really interact a lot with our public education system, which is perfectly fine. Those ladies at the library were fantastic. They are good liaisons for our homeschool community. Our homeschool families are very familiar with them. So they were more than tickled to partner with us and be our location for our homeschool students. And then they asked me a question. They were like, listen, we have a bookmobile and it goes out to the Amish community. Would you be interested in doing that as well? Yes, I would. Please feel free to share with them. This is what we offer. This is what we can do. And they were very tickled to be able to take that program out into the Amish community as well, which is wild. But like I said, with our homeschool students, we wanted to make sure that those folks knew that they were a part of this program, whether they were in public education or not. It is for every kid in our county. And I wanted them to make sure that was a forward concept for them, is we don't want to exclude you from a thing. If we've got it, we want to be able to share it with you. And next slide, please. For our local farmers, we are really, really blessed with a ton of local farmers. So what we're doing now and what we'll continue to do is get in there with them. What have you got space to plant us? What have you got that we can have a little bit extra of? We had farmers show up every Monday morning at 9:30 with washed and ready to go veg and produce. So we immediately put it into our 10 o'clock pickup bags, squash and zucchini and cucumbers and tomatoes and grape tomatoes. Whatever they had, we were willing to take it and get it out to these families. We also ask our farmers market, our local farmers market, hey, if you've got things that are left over from the Friday sale, we will gladly take those, get those out to families on Mondays. And we were really, really excited about that. But like I said, we are so fortunate to have that many farmers in our community that are like, yep, we'll plant that. We'll plant that extra acre for you to be able to take it. So we were really tickled. That is the big basis of what we do around here. Like I said, we are super small, and I know that a lot of districts, like Carla has a ton more kids than we do. And then Avery is feeding half an island. And it's also amazing when we try to like just do non-congregate feeding. So many different ideas and so many different methods, but with the same common goal. You can go to the next slide if you'd like to. So staff retention for us, bribery works, not gonna lie. I told my high school staff, if we can do 700 kids per week, I'll buy you some new ovens. And sure enough, we did well enough with it. We served out 57,000 meals, which for a school district of 1,400 kids, I'm okay with it. We ended up purchasing ovens for all of our schools this year. So the bribery, I can't knock it. It's really good. My staff worked 3 days a week, so they could pick their days. They could take long weekends. They could take weeks off if they wanted to. We did not make it a have to. it was a want to status only. And then we did do our regular hourly rate for those folks. So that way they were assured they knew what their salaries would be if they came in to work for that. But like I said, we made sure that they were a part of this system, that they had stake in it, that they had some kind of incentive to be there. That's their families, that's their relatives. They're helping their own community and their own families out. And I think they really embraced that, which was really cool to see. I think that is the end of all of my stuff. You can take the next slide if you'd like to. I am really tickled and really thankful to be here today. Like I said, as a small district, we usually get a little bit overlooked, but I was very tickled to hear from Robin to say, you know, come on and tell people how you do things in your spot. So I was very thankful for that. So if you have questions, yell them out. But thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much for joining us, Beth. It really is amazing to hear all the great things you did in your community, especially how you access those homeschool students, because that is a growing community, and how creative you were to, you know, really leverage those library partnerships to reach that community. So thank you so much. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, and also I almost forgot, I'm going to throw in the chat if you would like to read a little bit more about Metcalfe County Schools Summer Meals Program. There is a great little No Kid Hungry Kentucky Summer Meals blog I will be placing in the chat for you. Next slide. Oh, wait, no, keep this slide. So as we go to the last speaker for today, we're going to hear from Carla Boudreaux Horton, who became the head of Bossier Parish Schools Child Nutrition Program in Louisiana in 2018. Carla received her school nutrition specialist certification in 2023, currently serves on the SNA of Louisiana's executive board, and has been honored as both a Patriot of the Pandemic and 2024 Gold Star recipient. Known as the Energizer Bunny in human form, she's passionate about nutrition, people, and thinking outside the box and learning. So welcome, Carla, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Robin. It's an honor to be here today. And I love hearing from Beth and from Avery in Hawaii, because it's so different than how it works up here in Louisiana. So I think it's going to give everybody a really good overview. Next slide. So Bossier Parish, we have parishes instead of districts in Louisiana, and we're way in the north. Our parish is about 839 square miles, and so it takes about an hour to drive from top to bottom. We have about 130,000 people, and it is a pretty good mix of urban, suburban, and rural communities. Bossier is a public school district, and we have 33 schools and about 22,500 students at any given time. Normally, we operate Congregate Summer School in June, and it is about 4 days a week. We work a 4-day week during the summer. But we decided last year that we needed, it was twofold. We wanted a way that we could feed more kids during the summer, because there's only a small amount of our student population that goes to summer school. And then we were looking for another source of revenue for our child nutrition department. We are a mix of CEP and non-CEP schools, just as a little tidbit about our parish. Next slide. So what we decided to do was a drive-through grab-and-go model. Kind of similar to what we did during COVID, but a little bit different. And I'm going to go through that in the next couple of slides. We picked 4 rural sites in our parish, and I did not have very many schools to pick from, but I tried to strategically place them to where it would be the shortest distance for families to have to travel. So we placed one in the north, one in the south, one in the east, and one in central, all throughout the parish. And if you notice, there's not a west, because the west was too urban. We had no rural sites that were eligible in the west. So we just tried to strategically place them. And we decided to do 1 day a week distribution. And that was logistically all that we could do. We wanted to do a 7-day meal box, shelf stable, and just be one and done for the week. And that was just resources, labor, things like that. We just wanted to make it 1 day a week. And we did it from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. We gave out a 7-day shelf-stable meal boxes, or meal box. So it had 7 breakfasts and 7 lunches. And they were unitized. And we are a huge district. And so with procurement laws, we had to go through an RFP. We had multiple responses and ultimately, picked one vendor that would deliver to us these boxes ready to go. They met all of our guidelines that we were required to have. They delivered them to us, and all we had to do was take them from where they delivered them, which I'll go over in a second, to our families. And that was our goal, was to move that box the least amount of feet as possible. Now, we did have congregate summer school going on, and so we did not want to exclude those students from benefiting from the 7-day meal box. And so we could not double dip because they were already getting breakfast and lunch at 4 days of summer school. And so for the month of June, we gave out a 3-day shelf-stable meal bag for those summer school students so that they would not miss out on those extra meals. And that was only for the month of June because that's the only month that they were in congregate summer school. Overall, we gave out about 38,000 boxes, which that was over 8 weeks. And it ended up being 532,000 meals, which is just amazing because normally, we're only looking at, a couple thousand with our summer schools. So it was a huge success, but it was not without difficulty. And that's what I'm going to share with you if you want to take on this amazing and challenging project, to show you what we did. And to show you, I'm going to ask her to go to the next slide. I'm going to show you in pictures, because to me, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So we strategically placed those schools throughout our parish, and then we had to do a layout. You need an aerial layout, and you need to figure out, where are you going to place your boxes? What are you going to store your boxes in? How many people do you need to give out the boxes? And any other, details that may affect your site. But I'm going to go through this kind of picture by picture and explain to you what we did. So we had lots of, yard signs up to show people where to turn in. We did a big advertisement, and we had a check-in. My ladies that have their hands up, they were our check-in, asking them, did you complete your registration? They didn't. They had the QR code that they could complete it online. And they explained to them how they were going to just go through the drive-through. Then they would get to the second picture, and that would be where they gave us their scan code, which I know I see questions in the chat. I'll talk to you about how we registered and those things in just a minute. This is just physically how the grab and go worked, okay? They would give us either their scan code or their parent pickup form to ladies at that tent. And you can see there's a little girl. She would bring her little stuffed animal to show it to us. It was really cute. But we had laminated sheets of paper that were color coded. And so orange was for the 7-day box and blue was for our 3-day bag. And you can kind of see them in her hand. And when we would get that parent form or their scan form, we would write on dry erase marker, okay, she needs 5 of the 7-day boxes and 1 3-day bag. And we would put it underneath their windshield wiper. So we, got their information, put it on their windshield wiper, and then they would drive through. And you can see on the next slide, you can't see it as well on this picture, but it would be underneath their windshield wiper. So the picture is taken from underneath our tent where our boxes are and our containers behind us. But you can see as the cars are lining up, okay, we've got a car, they only need 1. Okay, that next car, oh my goodness, they need 10 boxes. And so we were able to, underneath that box tent, get things ready to keep that traffic going. Because one thing, you've got to have your traffic logistics, because you don't want the sheriff called because you have backed up onto public highways. I've been there. We did that our first day, and we had to revamp. So you want to make sure that you've got it as efficiently as possible, because things are going to come up, and the last thing you want is a traffic jam. especially in the Louisiana heat when it's already hot and you've got all of the exhaust from all of the vehicles. It's just, it was always challenging. But that is the way that we kept that line going, because we were able to have those boxes prepped ready so that when they pulled up to the tent, we were there ready to give them their boxes. We would take their card off of their windshield, and then they were able to drive away. Now, the bottom picture there with our two SROs, our school resource officers, that is a refrigerated reefer. So originally we rented dry storage to get our pallets of our boxes delivered, and they would just sit overnight, and the next morning we would give them out. Well, the problem is when you have leftovers, you cannot leave those in the heat for 7 more days. Even though it's shelf stable, you still don't want to leave that in the heat. And those pallets are huge, and they weigh about 1,200 pounds a piece. And it was very difficult for us to move those from the school parking lot into a refrigerated, or not refrigerated, but an air conditioned place. So we did that for 2 weeks, and I decided something's got to give. This is not working the way that we thought. And so we were able to rent refrigerated containers. And so then going forward for the last 6 weeks of our program, when we got our pallets delivered, we would get them placed into that reefer, and then we would just serve, straight out of there. So we did not have to worry about, moving leftovers and things like that. So that's just something you want to think about, is where are you going to store it? Are you going to order enough to where you have leftovers? Because we didn't want to run out, but you can't, it's not a given. When they sign up, you're not guaranteed that everybody is going to come and pick up the box. So that was a learning curve as well. But all in all, we had a fabulous response to this program. We were busy nonstop. Weather, heat, rain, we served no matter what. And it was just absolutely amazing what we were able to do. Next slide. But I will tell you, there are lots of things you need to think about when you are doing this. You need to think about where you're going to store your product, where you're going to do your leftovers. I already mentioned traffic flow. What kind of equipment do you need? Pallet jacks, your signs, how many workers and volunteers are you going to need? What are you going to do about the weather? One thing that we did learn about hydration in the Louisiana heat is that you have got to hydrate the day before. You can't just wait and hydrate that day. And so we were able to make rotations where we had people going in the air condition. Our transportation department gave us some air conditioned buses that we were able to rotate people out to go take a break. We got the old fashioned, popsicles, Otter Pops, Flavor Ice, pass those out every hour to help keep us cool. We had tents. Don't forget to get anchors for your tents, because we did have a tent fly onto a parent's vehicle. Then, have a plan. What if someone has heat exhaustion? Who you're going to call? How are you going to feed your staff? Because we were there from 8 to 1. So, and what kind of support system do you have? Do you have the support of the schools, of your admin? Because it takes a village to pull this off. And so those are just things to think about before you get into the nitty gritty, because I wish I would have known those things about, anchors of tents and the, Gatorade and water and icy pops to keep us cool. We needed a lot more staff than we thought we did, just because of the heat and having to rotate everybody through. So lots to think about. Try and think outside the box of what could possibly go wrong, because you cannot overplan. You definitely cannot overthink this, to think about, have plan A, plan B, plan C when it goes. All right, next slide. And these are actually the next 3 slides. I'm not going to go over all this. I just wanted to give you a reference, because as Robin said in the beginning, each state requires different things. We did use technology. We used a Google form. We did collect our parent and student information. And then next slide. that gave us a Google sheet that gave us all of the information that we needed. And we marked each week who picked up a box. And that was how we kept track of who picked up a box. We would mark that when we got their parent pickup form or their scan sheet. So next slide. So when I say scan sheet, we emailed, everyone who registered was emailed a scan code. And that way, when they would come through the drive-through, they could print out their scan code and we would scan it and it would keep track of it, everything on our Google Sheet. We did not get it to work completely last year, and we are working on perfecting that this year. But you can see on this little screenshot, it will turn red if it's somebody who has already double dipped, somebody who has already gotten from another school, it would turn up red. And so that scan code is, I have to give shout outs to my technology department. They're wonderful. And we are working out those kinks to get it working this next year. But that is our plan for next year, because even doing it the first time, it didn't go as smoothly as possible. We were still able to get all of our names and, you know, keep up our program integrity, but we are going to do it bigger and better this year. And we're going to be using Google and our scanners to do that. So next slide, and I know I need to wrap up. But teamwork makes the dream work. I cannot tell you enough. This is my central office team, and we're nice and professional at the bottom picture. We received an award of excellence for our hard work on this program and the success that we had for our Bossier families. But the top two pictures are us. You know, we work hard and we play hard, and my team was just amazing. What they were able to do and rally with the call to service this summer. And I could not have done it without them. And in closing, I will just say one of our parents, that quote is one of our parents, and she called me in tears because she said, I was sitting here praying over my finances, not knowing how I was going to feed my kids this summer. And it wasn't just an answered prayer. And so that's just one of thousands of feedbacks that we got from our parents. And so even though this program was a lot to coordinate and execute, it was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my career. Next slide. So this is my contact information, and there's a QR code that will lead you to a Google form. I had a lot of people at the Summer Summit ask me more details, and so I think I'm going to do just a Zoom, just a personal Zoom of, hey, here's a Q&A. This is what we did in more detail. So if you were interested in that, you can scan it and I will get your information and be in touch with you soon. But I just want to thank you, Robin, and No Kid Hungry for putting this together and allowing me to be beside the two wonderful ladies. Avery, I might butcher this, but did you say Lolima means many hands? And it just gives me goosebumps because that is exactly what this program is. It takes many hands to get it done, but what an accomplishment that school districts and community partners across the country have been able to accomplish. And so I'm just super excited to see what everyone is going to do this year, because we've learned so much and built each other up. So I thank you for letting me be part of this and wish everybody good luck.
Thank you so much, Carla. Great information. And again, huge thank you to all of our panelists. At this time, we're going to go ahead and answer some of these questions that you guys placed in the chat. I'm going to try to collect as many of them as I can. And if we can't get to all of them, we will go back and make sure to answer them later. But first, I just want to share, it looks like there have been several questions already related to menus, specifically Beth's menus. So what we're going to do is we'll ask our panelists to share some kind of overview of what their menus were, and then we can send those out to all of the registrants in our follow-up materials with our slide deck and our recording. Next, somebody asked a question: how did you package your meals and how many days with each distribution in Kentucky? And Beth answered that they packed the shelf stable in large grocery bags. The freezer items were packed in plastic bags and placed in the top of the bag right before pickup. They did a 5-day meal pickup, but they're hoping to expand to 7 days for this coming summer. Did I get that, Beth, or did anything you'd
Yes,
like to add to
ma'am.
that?
No, that's it. We changed our delivery method just a little bit. We used a 40-pound grocery bag like the old fashioned, and it worked out much better this year. And it was something that was recyclable.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Let's see. I've got another question to email the menus. Another question about menus. So we will collect those menus for you all. Okay, we had a great question here. Looks like it might be for Carla, but I think good question for everybody. Whoever wants to answer. How do you handle it if someone comes up who already has gotten meals?
If someone, I'm going to be honest, this past summer, we did not know that on the spot when they did it. We found that out after the fact when we were looking at the names and logging the names. This year, we will see it immediately because we'll be scanning them. Honestly, if, you know, I don't ever want to deny anyone a meal, and it could be a clerical error that we have a marked and not marked. My first response would be just give it to him, and I would eat the cost. You know, for me, especially if it was somebody that was just that I knew, you know, that was in need. I think if it was a repetitive thing, then, you know, we may, and it would be more of the site supervisor that would say, hey, you know, did you get another meal here? We just want to make sure that we're not double dipping. Like it would be a very respectful, inquisitive type thing instead of, you know, not the no box for you. You know, I would rather somebody get double and me eat that cost. If it was an every now and then thing, then versus, you know, just denying somebody a meal. But that's just my mama and my dietitian heart. Like I would never want to deny anyone that. But definitely we would look into it to see what's going on here. Is it an error on our part that maybe they were scanned in error or entered in error? Or is this truly somebody who is trying to work the system?
Thank you for that, Carla. We're going to go ahead and move to the next question. Somebody asked, in regards to keeping milk at the correct temperature, how did you all do that? Did you all use shelf-stable milk?
Yes.
Shelf
Everything in our boxes was shelf stable. And the kids actually liked the shelf stable milk, especially the chocolate. They loved it.
What about you
We-
guys, Avery and Beth?
Yeah, we did not. We used gallon milk delivered from our dairy supplier. We brought it out when the parents came and immediately put it into cold bags. Most everybody had a cold bag in the back of their car and stashed it in, and that was it. But yes, we do use whole gallon milk.
And how did, and
We
you said you had
utilize shelf stable.
okay. Great. Thank you both. Another question came up. Did families have any input into meals? Did you ask families for an overall preference using a questionnaire or any other methods?
I did not. I went with what I know my kids usually eat at school and went with it that way.
I echo what Beth said. We did not, but we made sure in our RFP, you know, they were scored on, you know, the menu that they had and the variety. And we knew it was something that our kids would like. And so we did listen to their feedback. And for our bid that's going to be going out, we are going to request certain things. Like we want half of the milk to be chocolate. We only want bean dip to be once a week. We only, you know, different things like that. So I echo what Beth said. We just went off of what we knew from the school year that was popular or unpopular.
We asked the staff. Many of our staff have children, so the whole thing was building a menu that we would be willing to eat ourselves as well as the kids.
Thank you. Let's see. We have a couple other questions. Were families required to register before receiving meals? And how did you handle walk-ins?
Yes, they had to register. For walk-ins, we actually had physical copies of the registration form printed, but we did that also to accommodate disabilities. So we already had that, the staff had it, and we would assist with registering them. If there was a disability with reading or writing, the staff would fill it out.
We did promote everywhere for everyone to re-register. To pre-register. We had a QR code that was on yard signs as they came through the drive-through. And our first tent asked them, are you registered? And if they weren't, they had the QR code there for them to do on their phone. However, if we had anyone that had a disability or, difficult with technology, we kind of had a little, just like at a drive-through at a restaurant, they would just go over to the side, and that way we could assist them without them clogging up that line. And so we would assist them to help to get them registered.
Let's see, this one's kind of a long question. So it says, curious for those who did multiple day pickup, how did you present this? Did you order boxes, or how did you keep the items cold during pickup? Did you provide anything frozen? Recommendations for purchasing boxes. So just kind of general questions about these multiple day boxes, how you managed that. Would anyone like to speak to that?
I can, because we were shelf stable. We did not have the capability of doing the amazing produce and fresh fruit and vegetables that Beth and Avery did. We had to do an RFP. And so we outlined all of the guidelines of what we wanted, the menu, the unitized, exactly, the meal patterns of what we wanted. And they gave us a price per box. And we estimated from our pre-registrations how many we thought we would need at each site and got them delivered the day before. Like I said, we put them in a dry storage container for the first 2 weeks. Then we switched to a refrigerated reefer container that, the day before everything would be delivered and loaded into that container. And then we would distribute out of the container the next day.
So we have multiple fridge units here. So our boxes for our fresh produce, we put in the shelf stable items and the things that didn't require refrigeration first, and we assembled those boxes. And just prior to distribution, we put the cold items or frozen items in.
Same with us as Avery. We, kind of built it from shelf stable up to the fresh stuff and then put the frozen in on top of that. But yeah. And since our pickup was immediately outside of our kitchen doors, we were able to keep things, really well within temperature. So we got lucky there.
Thank you so much. We have a few other questions, so maybe just time for one more. What's the best shelf stable items you would recommend including in our meal boxes? So I think that one would go to Carla.
I would say the best, it just depends on the kids' preference. We had things, we had dried fruit, we had some little chicken beef jerky bites, we had like a taco kind of hummus dip, we had cheese and salsa, we had cheese sticks and beef sticks and turkey sticks, we had sunflower seeds, and of course, we had breakfast cereals, breakfast bars. We had juices. I mentioned dried fruit. But the number one thing that everybody loved, of course, was the Jack Link's chicken bites. That was the kids. Everybody, went through. Mine was the chili con queso cheese with the crackers to eat, like a nacho plate. And but those would be those were the most popular.
Thank
I was
you.
going to say our most popular was it was a slushy. It was a shelf stable slushy. The kids would throw it in the freezer for a half an hour, work it just a little bit, and it was a grape flavored or a fruit punch flavored. So that way everybody got a little bit of ice cream, but you didn't have to fight it because it's 112 degrees and humid in Kentucky at all times. I'm sure it is in Louisiana. Avery, I'm sure you got fantastic weather all the time, but Lord, here it's just wild. But that was one of the best things we put in ours was just that little slushy.
I think from the organization's perspective, it was definitely the shelf milk during the shelf stable milk purely based on having to house it in the refrigerator units. And a lot of our families, the amount of keiki that were in the household was anywhere between 4 and 8. So if we were to give you 8 gallons of fresh milk, most families could not store that amount. And then we do serve a large houseless population or people who are having issues with utilities. So at least it allowed them to be able to utilize the milk.
Thank you, everyone. I did notice one last class question about how did you handle food allergies? I just want to note that you can, the medical statement is still in play for summer meals. So students or families can have, can fill out that medical statement just like they would during the school year. Avery, since you're from a community-based organization, did you handle food allergies in any particular way?
Yes, we had a few, and it was just having to do with dairy. So we did make the shift to buy the alternative for those specific families.
Thank you. And since we're nearing the top of the hour, I'm just going to briefly go through our updates. You guys don't want to miss this. Next slide. Be sure to visit our Center for Best Practices for access to all of our webinar recordings, tons of summer meals resources, and more. All of these links will be sent out in a follow-up email. Next slide. You might want to go ahead and use this QR code to stay in the know about all things related to summer meals. This is for our Summertime Snack newsletter. It is a monthly newsletter to keep you informed of everything related to summer meals, especially for those of you who are going to be working on non-congregate meals this year. Next slide. And then also, we are in for a real treat next week. We're having none other than the great Donna Martin sharing her A to Z approach to hiring youth for summer meal programs. I've personally listened to her speak on this topic, and I learned so much. It's really timely as well because youth are a great option for those struggling to fill their staffing vacancies for summer. So if you're even considering the possibility of hiring youth workers or recruiting youth volunteers, you do not want to miss this webinar next week, and I will be sure to put the link in the chat right now. Next slide. And also your feedback is really appreciated. Please answer those the little quick 5 questions as we conclude the call today. And next slide. And I just want to say thank you so much for spending this hour with us to kick off or to continue our summer webinar series. Also, a huge thank you to Avery, to Beth, and to Carla for sharing their experiences today. And we look forward to seeing you all next time. Good afternoon, everyone.